Hello, in this video we're going to discuss value labels and how to define a value label and assign a value label. Now, a value label is essentially the labels for a variable that we use when we're trying to explain different variable options. For example, if I use the command codebook for the data set that I have pulled up and I talk about gender, okay, codebook for gender, what that does is it tells me how many of each value I have for a particular variable. In this case, I have 6 ones and 4 twos. And in my mind, I know that 1 is male and 2 is female. However, when we have lots of variables, that can get confusing. So instead, what we do is we apply value labels. Okay? For example, I want Stata to recognize that male is 1, female is 2. So what I do is I define a labeling scheme using the command labdef, which stands for label define, and I'm going to call it gender. So basically I'm creating the label gender for the variable gender. And I'm going to say that 1 is male and 2 is female. Now you'll notice I didn't put any equal signs, I didn't put any quotes. Since these labels are just one word, I don't need quotes. Stata will automatically associate the first word after the number with the label. Now if it was more than one word or had a number in it, I would put quotes, and we'll see some of that later. So I hit enter, and now I have defined the label. Now I need to apply the label. So labval, or label values, and I want to identify which variable to label. So gender. And I want to apply the label gender, which I've done. And if I go to my data editor, which I'm going to show you why I use the data editor in a second, now all my 1s have been relabeled male and all my 2s have been relabeled female. Now, sometimes we have multiple items that require relabeling. So in this case, cancel. In this case, I'm going to create another variable using a ordinal scale 1 through 5, like a Likert type item, where 1 is strongly agree and 5 is strongly agree. So I'm going to create another one. I'm just making these up off the top of my head. Okay, and we're going to create a third one just for the sake of appearances. Oops, this one. Okay. Now I'm going to change these variable names, and if I click on the variable column, or the variable var4 in that column, it highlights all the data. Then I can go over here to the properties window, double click, and change the item name. I'm going to change it to item 1. Enter. Now that variable is renamed. I'm going to do the same thing for variables 4 and 5, except I'm going to call them item 2. And variable 6 is going to be called, oh my gosh, you guessed it, item 3. Excellent. Now, in my mind, I know that 1 stands for strongly disagree, 3 stands for neutral, 4 stands for agree, but since I have multiple variables, I may want to see that a little more readily than I can right now. So I'm going to go back to my command window, and I'm going to create a new labeling scheme. To create a labeling scheme, we do labdef, label defined, and I'm going to call it Likert. Likert, I've heard both. And I'm going to say that 1 is strongly disagree. Now, since it's 2 words, I put it in quotes. 2 is disagree. 3 is neutral. It's interesting. There's a lot of research about whether or not you should include the neutral option or whether you should force people to agree or disagree. But that's not for right. And 5 stands for strongly agree. Okay. So I have now defined my labeling scheme. I am now going to apply the label to different items using labval. and I'm going to define the following items. Item 1 through item 3. Now what this means, I put the little dash instead of writing out item 2 because I want Stata to label every variable between and including items 1 and 3. And I want it to use the Likert that I just created. Boom. Now I'm going to verify this with my code book for items 1 through 3. And we can see now my items are correctly labeled: strongly disagree, agree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And you'll notice that the results kind of tapped out here, but if I hit more of it will show up, and I just keep doing that. Okay, so there's all my results, and if I go back to my data browser, we can see that those values have been changed. So now when I'm looking at this research in 3 years, I know, oh, 4 means 4 means agree. See, I've already forgotten. That's why I relabeled them. Okay, so this is our quick video on how to define labels and how to apply labels. So I hope that helps. Happy statistics!